Good morning, or, good afternoon, and welcome into the SCC. It's Finch and Gormizer here. We're going to be hopping in the EU SCC to be starting things off here today. As you all already know, we're spreading the rest of those matches out throughout the rest of the week before all of our SPL matches. Gore, we've been talking about it kind of nonstop here since the SCC started, but boy, has it been hard to predict exactly which teams are going to be looking good on which days. Have you come away with any reads other than it's hard to read what's going on here?
Man, it's just so back and forth between these teams. I mean, even today, I would actually argue, especially today, is maybe one of the more difficult ones to try and call, because the way things have been going, the standings are so close for them. Specifically, Accounting Department and Pandamonium are literally right next to each other, so it makes sense for that. Whereas I think Snake Hunters and Clay Soldiers are really close to each other. The only matchup in Europe this week that is like two distinctly different teams is Elysium and Just F6, and that's one where Just F6, I think, still looking for that first win to try and pick things up. And we just look at it, like literally everyone's right next to each other. You've got three teams at 2-2, two teams at 3-1. Like, it's just one slip up for one of those top two teams, and all of a sudden they're down in the dregs, quote unquote, with everybody else. Or a couple of wins for those people in third and fifth to really skyrocket up into the top two.
And you're right to focus on those top two spots. Those are the key ones here for the SCC in both regions. That's where you want to be towards the end of this phase. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this Accounting Department, or old rival, I think fair to call this squad. A team that has struggled a little bit more than we would have thought coming here. This is a team that, had considerations towards even making to the SPL this year, but still not quite getting off of their right footing here in the actual SCC. Gore, what's been your read on this team here so far? You think they're kind of turning a corner here right now and starting to look a lot better?
It's definitely started to look much better the last couple of weeks. I actually really like this. You're not getting, like, you have Collis right here, but look at Deathwalker playing that Osiris. That was such a big highlight to watch and to experience and get to just have fun with throughout this game and this set. It was a nice kind of reminiscent of what we expect out of Deathwalker. And this set against Just F6, I think, was Accounting Department getting back to the basics of what they need. I think there's a lot of things with them being willing to go out of their way. Wolfie's been willing to pick things like the Agni, play some of these other picks. We even got Okeanos playing Rom last week, which was very interesting. But I feel like they have had the struggles of trying to just get back into it and kind of grind back towards the top. Last week was a really good grounding week for them, but today I think is going to be the ultimate test, right? Because it's like you're a great team. We know all of your players are great. Pandamonium has looked not unstoppable, but very difficult to handle in a lot of this. They only have the one loss, and so how we see Accounting Department take on Pandamonium today is maybe going to indicate to me more if this is a just middle-of-the-pack SCC team, or if they can really rise the occasion that we think they should be able to.
Yeah, this is a big game for Accounting Department. I don't think there's any other way to say it. You're right, they looked good in their Just F6, but that's got to be considered a must-win for that team. No need to sugarcoat it. Yeah. Right? That's got to be one they got to get. This, though, becomes a really, as you've already gets really, really good, I think, Gore, in their mid 3v3. This Joshi, Sarpei, Preds combination has been causing a lot of teams trouble here so far, and I think that's where they might even have a chance to cause problems for the Accounting Department.
Yeah, I actually just, it's one of those things you've heard pretty much every single player on this team's name in years past, but the way they work together just hits differently. Like, Sarpei can admittedly sometimes have some hit or miss jungle performances, but lately has been hitting pretty hard and consistent alongside Joshi, and I think it is the front lines on this team that really stand out to me, because everybody else seems to have, and I don't even want to say an easy time, but they get to have a little bit of fun in the background while Preds really start to drive things home. I think Kana has had some of the best rotations we've gotten to see out of solo lane, some very consistently great performances here in the SCC. And Preds, I mean, I can think of at least, let's say 5 or 6 times where they have died in giving their life for their team. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of highlights here where Preds is definitely not alive, but these players have been insane, and like, this was one of the best defenses we got to see in the SCC, period. And a lot of it is on the back of Kana. Like, I think it is for myths to say that Kana does admittedly carry this team sometimes. I mean, he will say in a standard fashion what we would have maybe equate to like Jake from the Bolts last year, that sometimes he just decides they're going to win the game, except Kana does it more consistently here, where sometimes it doesn't matter what Sarpei has done, it doesn't matter what Preds is doing or Joshi, any of that. He will just say, no, we are not going to lose here, and he will put his best effort forward.
Yeah, he's got tremendous impact out of the solo lane over there at Duscon, and I think it helps that typically he can count on his team to at the very least hold even in their lane, if not be ahead anyway. But that games we saw for them up against Clay Soldiers, that was Kana coming over and putting his foot down, wasn't it, as we move into the picks and bans now for game number 1. It will be the accounting department in that first pick position. Pandamonium will respond with the last pick, kind of going to look at accounting department's draft before they lock in their number 10th pick here, Gore. And we've seen in EU and in A, a little bit of differences here in this picks and bans in terms of what they prioritize. That, though, I think does not confuse anybody. We all saw the highlight. We also did. He cannot be permitted to have it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Honestly, it'd be one of those things if you're Kana and you're worried about it, like Deathwalker's Osiris was something that I would see in some highlights, and I would start thinking about trying to ban out. This might be a hat trick for him, though. Like, just ban out as much as you can in the solo lane. Admittedly, because if you're looking at it, you're trying to make Deathwalker feel pretty comfortable. Kana's a big threat, at least on those 2 picks. I think it's going to be on a few more than that, but trying to limit it down, like Cucullin's still available, or not Cucullin, King Arthur's still available, and things like that you can really flex to in terms of warriors. So you get the quote-unquote stronger pick, at least the one that's been more picked in the Pro League and the SCC down here. But is this Wukong going to be, I want to say, as strong as maybe some of the others that can come through?
I think we saw a 73% win rate down there for the Wukong picks, and that does speak to its value. Meanwhile, Anher, who has been, as you said, a must pick up in the SPL, has struggled down here, it would seem, but no real promise for me. We'll go ahead and making sure that Streak Up has a comfortable pick, and we know exactly what Joshi can do on this Scylla. Thought of by a lot of people as one of the premier, if not the premier mage right now in that middle lane in terms of follow-up, in terms of being able to keep up on the map. I love this response here from Pandamonium, but I kind of want them, Gore, to pick up something for Kana now while they can, so that potentially letting that King Arthur pick you already mentioned get taken away from him.
And I think, honestly, that's a really good, number 3 pick to slot in for them. They know they don't have to stress about it, so get your priorities first. And I really like Anher Scylla as a double, but I will say Wukong, Sobek, Heimdall is a
that's pretty good
really intimidating top 3. I mean, it's one arguably best in slot, like you said. I think Anher has been prioritized over the Heimdall, but Heimdall's very safe and he's been performing pretty well. Sobek is pretty much only rivaled right now by Ymir in terms of priority over there. I guess Athena is also in that conversation, but then Wukong has been the go-to pick for solo laners, mostly. It's been a shuffle, right? We've seen the Osiris, we've seen the Achilles, we've seen the Cucullin, we get to see this King Arthur, but it feels like Wukong has been the standard for a lot of these players. And I like where Pandamonium go. I think both of these have a really, really solid top 3, just focusing on different parts of the maps. Pandamonium got their 3 pillars, whereas Accounting Department have a really solid duo lane.
And a ton of Guardian bans now coming in for Accounting Department, trying to limit Pandemonium there as the Osiris jungle coming in now. That's what it's looking like, right? You gotta think King Arthur is going over to solo. Maybe Osiris support, but we really just don't see that. I gotta think this is in honor of Sino, a little bit of chop in the jungle here now.
Or, I'll give you credit. I think Sino, definitely Osiris jungle. Could be a shout out to Jake. He did play Osiris support last year.
Sure.
Can't remember how that one went. I'd have to go look that up specifically. But this is a really good and really solid team in response. I mean, what we've been seeing prioritized, Fenrir specifically up against Scylla, maybe not going to have the easiest of times just because she does have some CC immunity. She has a good survivability in of itself. But that nation is going to be very easy, really, or can get damage down for. Same thing with Sobek. I think that mid 3v3 for Accounting Department is going to be dead. Whereas, look at, I guess, Osiris, Scylla, Horus. I mean, you've got 2 warriors running it down. There's definitely going to be some devastating fights there, but I don't know if it has the same, at least quite the same synergy. A lot of slows, though, and that's really going to ruin your day if you're an Accounting Department fan.
Yeah, they're going to need the CC immune ults as well to deal with this Fenrir, who's going to be a problem. I'm thinking, though, Gore, as long as Pandemonium can keep this Cuckoo Khan in check, they've got a pretty good chance. But that's even done.
Yeah, like you said, easy done. Fenrir, easy setup for him. It's going to be easy setup for him. When he fight, guess what? And Wukong are also going to be very easy setup for him, and Heimdall has the added bonus of damage on there. It does feel like this trying to control Wolfie is going not in a surefire. Definitely going to make your game a hell of a lot easier to make sure he's shut down. So Joshy, come and him ahead as much as you can. But when it gets to the late game, 3 warriors, it's always this weird balance, right? Yep. You're just tanky enough that you're going to outlive some fights, but do you have the damage? I think on her and Scylla, the answer is going to be a resounding yes with those two, but you really have to focus on where this Osiris is, because his pressure in the jungle versus this Fenrir is going to dictate, I think, more of the mid lane matchup than just the 2 mages.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too, right? They're going to need his involvement there to try and turn things around for him. This is going to be a tough one for Pandamonium. It feels like to me they're saying, we want to win this one quick. We want to find a way to allow this Horus and Osiris to get pressure, for this Scylla follow-up, for On Her to have control over in that dual lane. I'm not saying that they completely fade away, Gore. You have the right point. They're still going to be plenty tanky in the late game. Yeah. It's just that life's going to be a bit harder for him without that traditional Guardian like this Sobek, who's so good at initiating these fights and setting up and causing issues for the other backline. We'll have to see how it plays out, though, on this one. Will Wolfie on the Kukulkan be the do or die? Let's find out in Game 1 with Dolson and Myth.
Thanks, Finch and Gore on the desk. It is time to kick off this week in competitive Smite. It is Dolson, it is Myth, and it is Doug for Game 1 between Accounting Department and Pandamonium. And Mifflin, we're starting to see this trickle down from the SPL to the SCC, the mindset around big setup junglers and confirmable damage in the mid lane. I'll hold off here. Let's see if Preds can find an engage onto Okeanos, but the Heimdall, smart of the situation, backs away, and he'll survive what could have been a dangerous start to the game.
Could have been, and you're right, Dave. I think that junglers right now really are starting to lean themselves either towards initiation or CC. In terms of Accounting Department, you've got Fenrir, that Ragnarok ultimate should be a huge beads burning tool to set up for Kalas in the late game, or even Okeanos to find his ultimate, whereas Sarpei is going for that frontline initiation role, wants to be one of the first ones fight, and then potentially the last one out if he can help it himself. But Osiris does have the capacity to flex his build, could go for that more assassin style with stone cutting sword, executioner, items along those lines if he wants to be a little bit less tanky and have a little bit more burst potential. So keep your eye on Sarpei and figure out how Pandamonium is electing to play around their jungler.
Yeah, chance here in the early game for Accounting Department to maybe put some pressure on Joshy. If you can get Wolfie out in the head, this Kukulkan out of the mid lane will certainly feel much more difficult to deal with. Deathwalker on the Sun Wukong, Kana on the King Arthur. This solo lane matchup is going to be so important, Miff. When we saw this rise of King Arthur and Tyr and the hyper-aggression out of the solo lane from some of the newcomers this past weekend in the SPL, that's something I'll be talking about on the SPL waiting room tomorrow if you want to tune in there. But the Sun Wukong King Arthur matchup is absolutely one that's becoming a little bit more popular, and it's so important to be able to match that pressure that one or the other is outputting.
As far as kill pressure goes, I think you're always going to favor King Arthur there. Just legitimately has more abilities than Deathwalker does on this Sun Wukong. But once we get to that level 6, level 7 state inside the solo lane, I think a lot of that solo potential, a lot of that death potential for both of these gods is going to start to fall off. Deathwalker usually likes to go for that soul leader for that additional sustain. Whoa. Kana likely going to go a little bit tankier as Deathwalker blinks past the poke just to find the clear on the wave.
Hey, why not? Roll your back to your tower, and Deathwalker is going to go back to base, spend up some of that gold anyway. Now over here in the duo lane, we've seen Sobek plenty, Mifflin. That's what Kalas will be piloting here in game number 1. Set up absolutely there, not only in lane, but later on in the game when you want to give Wolfie an easier shot with that Spirit of the Nine Winds. But on the other side, Preds on this Horus, it's a pick. Well, we've maybe seen now a couple of times. Unfortunate miss there from Kalas. He'll get speared on backwards, dodge out a few autos, and keep most of his health intact. But Preds on this Horus, it's an interesting pick, Miff, that we have only seen a couple of times this year in Season 8.
We have, and it looks like Preds is electing to go for a much more aggressive start. Went for the Boots Rush, doesn't have a starter item, and backs the second he can to get that Warriors Tabai online. Now, we're seeing that Pandamonium looking to play aggressive around this purple buff. Preds solo invading red, and purple buff getting invaded by the jungler and ADC.
And Preds steals the red buff here as well, and now the rest of Pandamonium over by the purple buff. Sarpei gets knocked on back, and purple buff goes by the wayside. So in one swift motion, red buff and purple buff just get taken away. I'll admit, Miff, I was curious. I mean, I guess I don't really know what Wolfie can do there. He's level 4, slightly low on mana, doesn't have the ultimate yet. I was thinking a level 2 Horus with just his boots walking in there. No chance. Felt confident enough and it worked out here. Now look at the damage. Okeanos has to dash away using his crystal. And the aggressive start from Preds continues to pay off.
And let that just be Dave of what your top eye start for Horror. All that damage all go on Okeanos. That's just himself. Meanwhile, in that invade on the left side, able to on the right, able to strip away the enemy's speed buff, and then fall back and acquire his own for himself. So Fenrir should be getting a slight lead here, and Wolfie's going to be moving a little bit faster. No red buff around his belt means he can at least have a speed.
That's right. So speedy Kukulkan then won't make all that much of a difference, maybe, unless there is an engage waiting to happen in mid. Oh, double stun, it's perfect, and then Sarpei eats the Spirit of the Nine Winds. That's the setup we were looking for. Then Wolfie able to close the gap, send the damage through, and first blood goes to accounting department.
That's not the easiest play to make, that stun from a range off of ultimate as Ice forced to fall back. Joshi, not quite fast enough on the Ama Monster to find the kill himself, is just going to go ahead and expend that ultimate for 0 returns. Ice very happy with how it goes for himself, able to return back to the jungle and farm back up. So far, Preds, despite going back to base super early on, doesn't split too much wave with his ADC, has been able to stay afloat, maintains the same level as Kalas and the Sobek, both supports level 4.
I wonder where Wolfie ends up going with this first item, because we see Book of Thoth usually right off the bat, right? Skip the starter item, skip the boots, just go Book of Thoth. We'll return to that conversation in a second here. As now Preds getting leapt upon, gets the knock up on the backside. The damage is there, but the Brutalize from Ice will close the gap. The stun from Sarpei is enough to at least return one. And now it's Kalas who has to dash away. So 1-for-1 trade. Ice for Preds. Pandamonium might feel like they got the better side of that because they're going to get a purple buff and maybe a red buff on the other side.
Yeah, Pandamonium feeling very good about that one. They trade out Ice's life in exchange for their support. I think that's a trade you're willing to take every single day of the week, Dave. I don't care at all about the guy using Benevolence or Sentinel's Blessing. If they pick up that active, their life means nothing to me, and it means nothing to these guys in the SCC either. I'm sure Pred's very happy to fall for the betterment of his team, and now the XP charts are starting to reflect the play styles. So far, Joshi's been allowed to free farm in mid, hasn't really split too much with his teammates, so he's got about a level lead on his opposition, and Streak Up has not been splitting too much farm over there. Preds, essentially, after invading that first red buff, has not been inside the dual lane at all, so on her, benefiting a lot of that solo farm, has also got a level lead as well. Keep your eyes on it, man. Pandamonium, despite being down in the kills, has been controlling the farm incredibly well.
That's right, gold just a little bit in favor of accounting department at this point, but Pandamonium right there, and maybe some of the areas that matter. Wolfie going heavy cooldown right off the start here, going to get 10% from that starter item, then goes cooldown boots on the other side of it. Kind of returning to that thought, though, does this look like it might still be a Book of Thoth for the Kukulkan? I mean, maybe you stack up quick enough that you're okay with offsetting that fully stacked book just by a little bit here, and maybe in exchange for some early cooldown, get those Spirit of the Nine Winds off a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, I think it is likely going to be Book of Thoth. The reason that he rushes boots is probably because of Sarpei on this Osiris. If you're a already immobile mage who's got no movement speed, that sickle slow from Osiris is essentially going to become a death sentence. This is why we see Wolfie elect for a safer path inside of boots first. But it's not going to slow down his build too much, getting that Book of Thoth a little bit later on. So I think he absolutely goes for the right call. As Okeanos, surrounded by 3, teleports out, should be safe.
And it's going to be another on cooldown purple buff invade. That's why you see Pandamonium all closing this gap. Couldn't tell you the last time Okeanos got one of his purples. Red buff looks like got stolen away over the wall unless we see Wolfie go and pick it up. Into the pit he goes, and he will pick up his own red buff. So just waiting to see if Joshua is going to send some damage over that wall. So at least the red buff goes over to accounting department this time. But now you're starting to see, Biff, a little bit of that level disparity growing over here on the left side of the map. Streak Up one level ahead. Okeanos has just kind of been back and farming. I mean, at some point, maybe you're okay. If you're this Heimdall, you're thinking, all right, I'm just going to sit back, farm up, wait till I get to that late game. It's not worth overextending and dying for a purple buff.
Yeah, and Okeanos doesn't really have the decision-making. He doesn't have the levers of power to pull here because of the matchup that he's been given. On her into Heimdall, I'm favoring the on her almost every single day of the week. That CC immunity from the ultimate, if timed properly, can completely mitigate Okeanos' ultimate. He's also got beads as well, and so far, accounting department has not been willing to send anyone over to to bail out this lead that On Her has already established for himself, closer to half near levels now, as he's been allowed to free farm this time. And keep your eyes on the builds as well. He's on old advance, moving into boots already on this back, should be able to finish up that Ninja Tabai. I think that we may have missed an opportunity on the side of accounting department to try and shut down her, who's been positioning very aggressive.
Full 120 more XP per minute streak up is over his counterpart, so that's going to continue bound that level lead as this game goes on. Still been quiet over here in the solo lane as Kana and Deathwalker will brawl it out, but we've reached Myth. King Arthur's going to have a much more time killing out the Kong advantage early on, but won't have it here. Purple buff close, and that's why you see Pandamonium start to rotate over here towards the left. Look at the leap out, though, from Ice. A pluck onto Pred sends him right back into the eye of Wolfie. Half HP on those tornadoes, so the Warrior Tabai will provide you a lot of damage, but makes you a little squishier against something like this Kukul Khan, who's now farmed his way back up into the lead. It is Book of Thoth completed for Wolfie now. Wonder how much of a fight you see over the red buff, over the purple buff here on the left side.
Ice going in, tries to immediately sees out by the whole. Spirit of the Nine Winds burns, drops low, Derek gets credit.
Walker counting to continue urge forward. Kalas maybe the last ditch effort here if he can find a pluck, but it's a good root on the backside from Joshi. That's always the threat, I guess, Mifflin. If you're gonna invade purple buffs on cooldown, it's almost like a free ward in a way where the enemy team knows right where you're gonna be at a given time, and they bring Deathwalker over early. Kana is gonna strip away some of the back camps here on the right-hand side, but there's more. Desert Fury flies through, gets Kalas, but it's accounting department taking down the Fury.
That's huge for the accounting department to get something back in these exchanges, able to find the rotation over to defend their own buffs, and then a Gold Fury on the tail end of it closes up that gold lead nicely. Now 1,000 in favor of the Order team, and Streak Up seems like your safety days are numbered. Ice finally making a rotation over. Brutalize finishes off that kill easily. The second On Her dedicates that jump, makes it so easy for Fenrir to use that third ability. Now Okeanos has an opportunity to invade purple buff himself if he's able to spot it out.
Kana trying to body block out Deathwalker. Pyromancer is half butt. Pandam back away from the objective. Wolfie was close well. Spirit of the Nine Winds could have been used to secure that objective. Iffy, but that's 40 seconds into the game. We'll take a quick pause. Appreciate the patience, everyone. Right back in to game number 1 we go. Accounting department up 4-2, and about 400 or 500 or so, 1,500 or so in the gold department. And Mifflin right on the back end of what was a great dive down there in the duo lane, finally giving Okeanos some help.
Yeah, finally someone able to get over there and make sure he gets his second purple buff of the match, Dave. 11 minutes in, better late than never. Now accounting department starting to hit the gas, feeling a little bit confident off the back of a nice team fight. Looking at the Pyromancer, and Sarpe, too slow to get there. Gonna go down for free to the Order side team, but can they get out? Pandemonium's on the chase.
That's right, Wolfie uses the Spirit of the Nine Winds to confirm the objective. That's a massive team fight utility that's now gone if Pandemonium were able to find that engagement. They are not. Sarpe, though, continuing to farm up here out of the jungle, finds himself one level behind Ice, but it's just felt, hasn't it, Miff? Like this Fenrir has just been so active in the early game. Sarpe, you know, small moment, little skirmish here and there that's gotten him a kill and an assist. But it just feels like Ice has been a little bit more present here in the first 12 minutes of this game.
100% kill participation for both junglers, but Ice certainly playing the map intelligently, realizing in the early that maybe they weren't quite ready, accounting department that is, to defend their purple and red buffs. So while that's going on, he's invading speed, invading blue buffs, and then finally, once the boys are ready, you know Ice is going to be there and be there in numbers, shows up, gets 2 kills and 2 assists for his team. Ice been all over the map for his squad. I think you're absolutely right, Dave.
I want to see some of that continued engage around this Kukul Khan as the game goes on. Yeah, that's, defense build on the King Arthur, and he's still doing this much damage to a Sun Wukong? Yeah, feels pretty good, I think, if you're Kana. And that's why I think, Miff, the desk put so much emphasis on the solo lane matchup, because Kana, I mean, Deathwalker, you know, extensive history in the game, amazing solo laner. Kana's really had a great season so far in the SCC. Attempted dive, but Sarpe just shy on the slow, and Deathwalker will be able to escape just fine. Now, protecting the blue buff is Kalas, and Deathwalker will be able to pick up his own blue. Wolfie making his way over from the mid lane as well. Just behind that is Preds and Joshy, but you got to watch out for the Horus ultimate to maybe find the re-engage. Kana, Spirit of the Nine Winds flies through onto him, but they can't get the damage onto the King Arthur. And look at the cleave on the back end. Joshy, I'm a monster, gets the first, won't get the second, but Pandamonium collapse, and they find one.
Stona Gaia putting in work for Kana there. Spirit of the Nine Winds does find its way home, but that knock-up only procs the passive, so additional
good
healing
point
for King Arthur keeps him alive in that situation, healing up through the Brutalize from Ice, who now in a little bit of trouble around his red buff Preds, looking for the steal from the updraft ranged auto attack. Not quite able to get it this time around. Going to go ahead and see if maybe he can chase out, thinks better of it, and resets back to neutral. Phenomenal play from Pandemonium Soul Laner, leveraging his build and his lead to get that aggressive positioning. Deathwalker can't match the sustain.
Wolfie now getting dove beneath his own Tier 1 tower. Where are the cooldowns? On the backside, the Tornado will connect onto Sarpei, but the aggro was all on Preds. That is a clean Tier 1 tower dive there for Pandemonium. And now the Chaos side starting to find those small advantages. Accounting Department won a couple small fights in the early game, but now Pandemonium finding the picks.
And now Accounting Department seeing if maybe they can surge their way forward, looking towards that red buff, and now towards the left-hand side. Ice certainly getting the call out. Shriek Up's jump is down, which means that Brutalize could come through here, but no way he tanks up the tower with Shriek Up this healthy, right?
You wouldn't think, but it is Ice who starts to tank up the tower. Okeanos is there on the dive. Brutalize finishes off the kill. And a couple tower shots in the back pocket, and Ice will survive, and Okeanos now finds another assist at least. 0-0-3 for him. Now one level lead over Shriek Up. The early game all for this on her, but some help being given to Okeanos that has not been given over to Shriek Up outside of some of those purple buff invades. And now the Heimdall really starting to roll here. Executioner on the back end of the Devourer's Gauntlet, and maybe the Wind Demon up next. But Okeanos is feeling good about where his game has started to turn here 15 minutes in.
Yeah, Okeanos going to have much more consistent damage at this point in the game, should be able to make his way forward through Kana's defense, through Sarpei's defense with that additional penetration from Executioner, but maybe we see Okeanos a little bit hesitant to take the 1v1 up against Shriek Up, who elected to go for the Wind Demon in that first slot. Only 2 crits could make the difference in that fight, and it's also going to help out pretty well around Oni Fury. Pandemonium already have vision from the Oracles, but no Sentry means that Accounting Department absolutely knows what's happening.
Well, Preds now wants to fully collapse in. The Spirit of the Nine Winds from Wolfie flies through. Look at the dive. Wolfie stood absolutely no chance. Ragnarok has been used, but it's now a Brutalize for Ice to get out of the fight here. Sarpei at half HP does a lot here, but look at Deathwalker rotates in around the backside. Both mid laners are gone. This fight is a wash so far, but now it's the Hunters starting to get involved on the back end of this fight. Up, down from Ice. No stun.
No stun this time around, so Ice disengages, as does the rest of his team. Now Pandemonium get to take their turn surging forward. 4-man Deathball grouping in the center of the map, seeing if maybe they can find some pressure. If they force Accounting Department back here, they're in a position where they can at least go for a Tier 1 tower instead. Taking a peek at the red buff, not quite willing to step further into that. I'm just surprised to see they elect to go back towards this gold tree. If they pull it up, it's going to take them a little while to clear it out. I think Accounting Department should be able to regroup and defend.
This is a small note, but Wolfie died so early on in that fight that he's now on the map and rotating in towards the Fury. Joshy just now respawning, so 3, 4, 5 seconds behind won't mean much unless Accounting Department tried to force an engage, but it looks like both teams happy to back themselves away and back off. Preds now 0-2-4 on this Horus, using those ultimates to kind of gap close, find the back line in that previous fight is a big reason that Wolfie goes down. But look at this, Accounting Department now taking a chance on the Oni Fury. They have the confirm. It was a little early, but confirmed down the damage nonetheless. And Accounting Department will grab the Fury, and they won't look for a fight after.
Accounting Department's afforded that gold 3 from the hesitation of Pandemonium. Had Pandemonium used that time where they had an advantage state to do just this and group up and try and take down this tower and then reset quickly, they could have gotten back to that gold 3 in time. Instead, Accounting Department, given all the chips, were allowed to do whatever they wanted on the map. But still, a 5-man roaming Deathball. Pandemonium now working to the right side of the map should be able to clear out this Pyromancer. No ultimate from Wolfie means there's just about no steal potential either.
How about Pandamonium cautious, reset the objective. They have the I'm a Monster, as you point out there, Mifflin. But if there's a fight afterwards, you're going to have the Spirit of the Nine Winds before the I'm a Monster. Oh no, Deathwalker steals it away with the range damage there on the Sun Wukong, and Pandamonium come up empty-handed. That really raises the question then, would it have been worth to use the I'm a Monster? And we'll be able to answer that question in just a moment. The I'm a Monster now gets used defensively for Joshi as the Tier 1 tower falls in mid.
It should have been used if you're worried about the steal, but Crush outconfirms Jinku Bang literally every single day of the week. I think Deathwalker potentially swinging for about 200 with his first ability, whereas Joshi should be swinging upwards of 300-400 at this point on neutral objectives. Just a slight mistiming on the confirmation there. Now Accounting Department starting to slowly slip away with this match. What was just a couple moments ago a 1.5, 2,000 gold lead has now started to balloon outwards, closer to 4,000 at this point. XP doing largely the same, starting to go in their favor as well. Accounting Department, I think they might as well just wait a couple minutes, regroup on the Fire Giant. So far, every objective they've gone for has gone their way uncontested. I don't see why Pandamonium would shift their pace now.
Yeah, it feels like Accounting Department's starting to run away with this game a little bit. Wolfie, a few minutes ago, you saw him just immediately get dove on in one of those fights and deleted. So, feeling like if he can have just a little bit more uptime with his Breastplate of Valor, might be a little bit more effective on the Kukulkan. And then, of course, the mana synergizes well with that Book of Thoth. So not all is lost. You're getting some magical power in that build anyway. And then a little bit extra depending on the way his build will round out here. Full-on rotation over the right-hand side, looking like a 5v5 around this Tier 1 tower. Horus will dropship someone in somewhere, and it's the Fire Giant pit now, and Okeanos able to survive thanks to the Bifrost. It's Pandamonium still surging forward, Myth, looking for a fight.
They're moving forward, but the only one in range to engage on is Deathwalker, and that's a tanky Sun Wukong who's got CC immunity and healing in his ultimate. I'm sure he's not too concerned with anything coming his way. All relics available on the side of Accounting Department except for the blink on Kalas, meaning that this should be a fight that they're incredibly favored in. Not only do they have the relics, but they've also got the gold and XP advantage, which is why I'm surprised to see that they're willing to give up so much space against Pandamonium, who's allowed to move forward so easily. Now, Accounting Department's starting to get their pace back and their feet under them, control the vision around the Fire Giant itself, and force Pandamonium back into their own side of the jungle.
That's right, and Accounting Department's still playing aggressive. I mean, it's the Fire Giant over here, right? I mean, this is the objective that we're positioning around 20 minutes into this game. Accounting Department feeling comfortable. If we can win a fight, we can maybe take the big one. The Pandamonium's still playing cautious. Then you have to kind of look at the wave state. Where are things pushing on the opposite sides of the map? A little bit of a push over on the left-hand side for Accounting Department. Once this wave meets, that'll feel a little bit more comfortable. Mid lane, dead even, then the right-hand side is feeling okay. So, Accounting Department buying some time. Doesn't look like the minion waves will really mean all that much since the dance didn't last all that long. But just seeing maybe if Pandamonium would overextend.
Well, with this slower pace, I think we can take a more macro view of the match, and I think highlighting the relic difference between these two hunters should be pretty important. Streak Up forced to pick up that Aegis out of fear of the raw burst potential from Wolfie. That Spirit of the Nine Winds likely needs to get involved if he wants any chance of surviving, whereas Okeanos isn't showing the same level of respect to Joshi, that I'm a monster, not enough threat, so instead picks up the shell for himself. Not only is it going to help him in the 1v1 up against Streak Up, once you pop shell, you get that auto attack immune stacks, you're also allowed to keep attacking yourself. It's also going to help out against this auto attack jungler inside of Sarpei. So intelligent building from Okeanos could shift this fight in his team's favor, but so far both squads a little bit hesitant to move forward, so Accounting Department takes this time to group up on the left-hand side. No defense from Pandamonium means that this Tier 2 tower should go down pretty easily.
Hey, so it looks like the wave on the left-hand side of the map did end up meaning something. There's not much of a reply from Pandamonium, but Accounting Department felt more comfortable taking down the Tier 2 tower with that minion wave there. But how comfortable are you? Was it too comfortable? Pandamonium looking for a pick here. Kana is going to have the angle on Okeanos. It's the dash on forward from King Arthur. Knockback immune, but not ultimate immune. Okeanos desperately waiting for the Bifrost, but it will not arrive. And the ultimate out and away just buys him some time. Kana will complete the kill nonetheless, but there's no real reply on the map from Accounting Department. Pandamonium find a clean one, and they'll rotate towards the Fury, or maybe over here towards mid lane.
It looks like it is going to be mid lane. It's so curious. Maybe they're concerned that accounting department are going towards the fire giant. Take a
Or
peek at
FG?
it. They're using that ultimate.
Yeah.
They're going for the fire giant themselves, repositioning with that Horus ult. But Joshi, too slow, misses the bust. They can't go for it now. Instead, have to look towards the fight. Pandamonium have so much advantage here, but do nothing with it. Now, finally, starting to do that fire giant itself, grouping up. They could have just walked over.
Joshi does not have the Armor Monster at this moment. Look at the damage from Deathwalker. And a frenzy gets used. Kana chasing down Wolfie. So the Kukulkan will have to survive on his own. Breastplate of Valor helping out a little bit there. Fire Giant has been stopped. But Pred's able to blink forward, looks for the stun, doesn't find it, instead it's Kalas with the pluck. Now lurking in the waters to slow down the onslaught from Kana. And accounting department looking to disengage, and they've done so.
Pandamonium still in the driver's seat, can't do the fire giant anymore. Okeanos respawned, so they take the consolation prize inside a Pyromancer. If Pyromancer was the end goal, they could have very easily done Primal Fury, then walked over or used Pred's ultimate as an entire team to reposition, but slight mechanical misplays, having Joshi and Streak up a little bit slow in the rotation of fire means that it delays that entire push. Pandemonium had so much more advantage state off of that 50, 60 second respawn timer of an Okeanos that you gotta imagine accounting department not feeling too bad about it. Not often 23 minutes in the game do you lose your ADC for free and still only lose out on a Pyromancer and then get a Gold Fury for yourself. Accounting department doing a great job mitigating loss.
Accounting department will end up getting the Fury, and there's no reply from Pandemonium here. Now Wolfie's going to be able to go back to base, spend up a little of that 2,000 gold he has in his back pocket. It was Rod of Tahuti, as I mentioned, after the Breastplate of Valor, and he's going to upgrade the starter item here, so that feels good. We're starting to reach that point, Mifflin, where a lot of the characters in the game starting to reach level 20. It's whether or not you can afford to upgrade those items that's important, but it looks like Pandemonium's still healthy enough in the gold department that they are able to do so. But that's all secondary to the fact that the Fire Giant has been pulled yet again. This time, everyone in the game except for Kalas has their ultimates ready, but lurking in the waters will be here shortly. Wishes he had it right now, I think, as the damage returns on in onto the Sobek and engage a crush. The damage from Joshi is there, but the backline dive, the up-down from Ice cleaves it all
Good
through.
Lord.
Accounting department finding the damage. It's a double from Deathwalker, and Kana will pick up one as well. Sarpei on a killing spree. Find some damage here on the front line. Triple from the Sun Wukong. A quad right around the corner. Hit him with the 4-time baby.
The
Deathwalker finds 4. Sarpei on the chase down. Deathwalker blinks through, stuns, pentakill right around the corner. Wolfie! No! Wolfie steals the penta, but it's a deicide nonetheless for accounting department.
Bro, if I'm Deathwalker, I'm throwing up the F6 vote. I'm maybe consulting with the team, talking about how Wolfie should no longer be allowed to play it, and now they can't even do the Fire Giant. He's just squandered this penta play, not only from the fans, but from his teammate Deathwalker. Unfortunate allocation of that last kill, but still we got to talk about how accounting department does come ahead inside of the team fight itself. Off a phenomenal play from Ice, the double stun into multi-man, brutalized, does so much damage, and allows Deathwalker to tear through 4. Just unfortunate that Wolfie might be the most selfish player on the planet.
Well, you wonder if it's calculated or like he's just trying to help Deathwalker out with the last bit of damage. I mean, Deathwalker would have been able to get it done there, I think, nonetheless. But look, jokes aside on the pentakill steal, Deathwalker did serious work in that fight. 4 kills and 1 assist, and damn near full 5 kills there for the Sun Wukong. The damage of the King Arthur and the Sun Wukong cannot be questioned, but the dropship on in finds Wolfie in the backline. Streak up will not find the kill. Wolfie dodging everything, survives, and now Ice Wolfie both find a kill. Mifflin, this felt like a last-ditch effort from Pandemonium, and it did not work.
Unfortunate, the streak up gets slammed by that 9 wins. Now Sarpei at least able to find Okeanos in the back, isolated. Ice trying to find something for himself, but Pred's able to peel out pretty well. If Ice is able to close gap on a Sarpei, there's no way Sarpei wins this fight. As long as he's able to keep outside of brutalized range, he should be able to survive.
That's right, so the retreat now. This Fire Giant is stubborn. It better be the best Fire Giant buff. I don't know, it's got to have extra buff in it or something with the way that these teams have been fighting over it. Nobody's been able to secure it. There's just been chaos all around it, and it still stands. So really, I think Pandemonium probably feeling better off now that accounting department hasn't been able to get the FG locked in for themselves just yet. Looks like we're going back to neutral here, Mifflin. No ADCs up for either team, so no chance really to fight around these objectives. Let's get these waves pushed out. Let's regroup and let's dance around the fire giant once again.
Man, Wolfie's build really has just about no penetration in it. I mean, Rod of the Hootie, sure, but going for that Polynomicon for additional burst should help out slightly. And it was an auto attack that stole the pentakill, so maybe this time that auto attack going to swing even harder. Best of luck finding your 5th if Wolfie's on your team. But so far, both squads really struggling to confirm the largest objective of the map, Fire Giant. Even when one team does win out on a fight, it has not been clean enough that they can go for the objective itself. And now we're starting to rapidly approach that 30-minute mark where it becomes enhanced. You said that you wanted it to have some additional properties to it, Dave. Well, in exactly 2 minutes, it sure will.
Yes.
So
Perfect.
I think maybe both squads might be willing to wait it out a little bit longer.
That's right, Wolfie. I mean, maybe you're just getting dove so much that if you can proc some of those proc the poly on a few auto attacks, that's your best chance at getting some burst damage if you're not going to be getting massive tornado cleave throughout some of the rest of the fight. We'll see how it pays off. 3, 2, and 6. Top damage in the game by about 2,500 or so. So whatever it is working out for Wolfie as we stand. There's a clear line in the dirt, I guess, over here on the Pandamonium side of the jungle. Clear ward path as well for the accounting department. On the backside, Pyromancer is going to get taken down by accounting department, so the small objective is secured. And the poking and prodding. Look, Preds has been aggressive in the use of the Horus ultimate here. Maybe that's what Pandemonium need is a sneaky drop back behind accounting department to get things started.
Maybe, but you don't want to drop everybody in there. Last time they got a 4-man drop,
all
Streak
5.
Up instant died for it, so maybe have someone desync that engage so all this AoE damage on the side of accounting department doesn't get its full entire value. So far, though, Pandemonium hesitant to move forward, but can you blame them? 9,000 gold down at this point. They have to play nearly perfectly around this stance of the Fire Giant if they want any chance of defending it itself. 30 seconds away from that enhanced Fire Giant coming through, accounting department still just posturing, waiting for someone on Pandemonium to step too far forward. And if anyone does, you better believe Kalas is going to be there with the pluck to put you even further out of position. Now, 20 seconds left, 10 rather, on the enhanced Fire Giant. Accounting department go ahead and start it up, baiting Pandemonium in.
3 spectral armors for Pandemonium. You think this squad is a little bit nervous about Okeanos and the damage he's going to be able to do. Deathwalker and Ice both combining for the beads of Sarpé. And oh my god, the damage absolutely melts through the health bar of Sarpé, so it's kind of a 4v5 here. The Osiris cannot participate in this fight. Preds takes Kana into the backline. Spear of the 9 wins. Splits the uprights of this team fight, and it's a full-on retreat now for Pandemonium, but Deathwalker wants a chance at a penta. But Ice will steal it away before it even really starts. All of that for 1 pick.
All that for 1 pick and a tier 2 tower, Dave. Now the mid Phoenix exposed
that's right.
on the side of Pandemonium. That 1 pick for Joshi should also open up an opportunity for accounting department to go ahead and work their way in towards Fire Giant. Scylla was their best shot. Pandemonium that is at stealing away this objective, which is now enhanced. But still, Pandemonium working their way forward, maybe hoping that they can get that same level of steal that we saw from Deathwalker earlier with the Jinku Bang. Think better of it, and just let it go down. Accounting department, 31 minutes in the game, enhanced Fire Giant on their belts, and only 1 tier 2 tower standing between 3 exposed birds on the side of Pandemonium.
It's about time the Fire Giant falls, because we've been over here on this side of the map for about 10 minutes watching these teams fight. Then they're not able to cleanly win those fights, and finally accounting department on the end of 1 pick, and it's maybe the most important one. You get the steal potential kind of off the board with Joshi there.
Where'd it go?
My god, that Phoenix goes down quickly. So right side Phoenix gone, and seeing how much damage they're able to do, you think the accounting department are probably feeling confident to just walk on in next time.
Yeah, that's one of the additional benefits of that Polynomicon, able to proc on these Phoenixes and towers. Every single time Wolfie throws out an ability, his next auto is going to be dealing about 400-500 damage to these structures. So they can play it slow around the siege as long as Wolfie's able to find those priority autos. 3-4 of those round out, should be able to get you those Phoenixes pretty easily. But the defense from Pandemonium is not awful. They've got potential from Sarpé to find a multi-man stun off the tether. Maybe Joshi, 1 good ultimate, could shut down either Wolfie or Ice, who are both incredibly squishy at this point. Okeanos as well. They've got a lot of tools that they can utilize, and the game does simplify on defense. It's just whether or not they're able to withstand that initial storm from Accounting Department. If they can make it through Ice jumping in and going for the Ragnarok, if they can survive that first Spirit of the Nine wins from Wolfie, I think that's really where Pandemonium can start to thrive. But that's easier said than done. 13,000 gold down, 14,000 rather. Never do math on cast.
Plus an enhanced fire giant, which is another
Plus.
large chunk of kind of virtual, untangible gold, I guess, here. As the Accounting Department make their way down the left side of the map. 3-2 split is what we're looking at here. Ice Deathwalker in mid, answered by Sarpei there in mid. So it's a 4-man answer, and then Kana kind of flexing back and forth between. But now it's the 5-person group from Accounting Department. Deathwalker first on in, into the back line. Streak Up never stood a chance in this fight, neither did the Phoenix. Okeanos being looked at, able to kite his way away, and Spirit of the Nine wins will fly on through. Ice now on a killing spree. Kana alone on the back line. This looks like the death throes for Pandemonium. Accounting Department can walk on in.
Accounting Department divides and conquers the fight. A 2v2 and a 3v3 in the back goes their way cleanly. Now inside the Titan.
Yeah, this is going to be game number 1. Accounting Department buy their time. They're patient around the FG. And then the Titan in 33-34 will go on over to Accounting Department, game number 1 along with it. It just felt like the engage was just more consistent there for Accounting Department by the end of the game.
By the time they were grouping up as 5, I completely agree, Dave, but maybe a couple of flubbed invades from Pandemonium does open the door for Accounting Department to work their way back in. It's almost backbreaking having your red and purple buff consistently invaded. I think 3 successful invades back-to-back created a pretty large lead for Pandemonium in that early game, but they weren't able to transition it into anything substantial, weren't quite able to get towards those Gold Furies, those towers, or those Pyromancers. If they can clean up that mid-game, Accounting Department could be struggling in game 2.
Oh, and then finally there was some help and some return pressure from Ice out of the jungle, helped out Okeanos, and suddenly the Heimdall wasn't all that far behind, so way to bounce back there for Accounting Department and really pull that lead there in game number 1. Accounting Department up 1-0 over Pandemonium. Quick break, we'll be back with game 2.
It's a big Game 1 win there for the accounting department, Gormizers. They take care of Pandamonium relatively cleanly. Built themselves up a nice early game lead. When it came to Fire Giant time, they really picked that defensive Pandamonium apart, and then eventually a nice, easy push into the Titan room there for them. But where did you see this kind of break apart for me? For Pandamonium, it was kind of on their Fire Giant defense, but Gore, where did you see this one kind of collapse for them?
I mean, there were a couple of times, realistically, around that Fire Giant defense where things really did collapse. I mean, Deathwalker straight up got a quadra kill at one point, right? And it's just like,
that'll help.
They didn't necessarily... I wouldn't even say that you win as accounting department off of that, because you lost just as much, I think, in retaliation, but you were still able to find control, and then the next time, they just did it cleaner. Yes, Deathwalker didn't get a second quadra or, a penta, Wolfie, but he was still going to be able to set themselves up for success around the Fire Giant, where they just didn't have the fight on the other side. I mean, you see, at this point, 25 minutes in, there's still a lot of kills on board, but the game was roughly even. At this point, there's still like a 5,000, 6,000 gold lead in favor of accounting department. They just started securing objectives faster and better and cleaner and pretty much everything that you'd want in a mid to late game team. They started doing better than Pandamonium, and a lot of it was oriented around their secure. I mean, Joshi had the capabilities to compete with Wolfie in that ult in terms of trying to lock things down, and yet he just was never really present, whether it was forced backs or kills or whatever. You never got to see the Yamamonster contest that Spirit of the Nine wins, and so every Fury that they were able to pick up and then the Fire Giant all just kind of scooped right into accounting department's hands.
Yeah, Pandamonium looked lost in the late game for me there, Gore. I mean, you remember there's a point where accounting department are on the Fire Giant, they break 2 members off, they go get a tier 2 tower in left, and Pandamonium don't have a response on fire over or in left. They do manage to get that kill on Okeanos, yes, but they don't do anything really with that. They eventually kind of get Pyromancer, but that's about all on the tail end. They were really struggling to find their way in, and eventually, kind of as you're saying, they started to get to bleed to death here, this Pandamonium squad, who was, while keeping them locked in on fire, reaching out and grabbing other small objectives, continually growing that lead, and winning fights pretty handily, even if they couldn't do fire on the back of it. They were able to come back in, having gotten more experience and gold, just as a result of winning those fights. Eventually, Pandemonium could not keep up, and I think the best way to say is that eventually they were bled dry here by this accounting department team. But what is sort of the prognosis then? What does this team do in response if you are Pandemonium? Because they were not doing great in the early game either. That's where that initial 2.5k gold lead or so came from, and they struggled in the late.
You change up the Warriors. I mean, 3 of them in one team it's either going to hit or miss, right? And that one was a big miss, and that's the problem, is that sometimes that's a composition that will roll the other team down. But I think this is one of those cases where you got to see the opposite of it. I think it's just one of those things. Osiris in the jungle is somebody that you're going to have to pay extra attention to make him work, so maybe that's where I'd make the swap out. I think Horus didn't necessarily have the performance that he wanted, but I don't know how much of that is fully on him. I still think Horus can fit as a Guardian, or as a support, I should say, but this was one of those moments where you either swap out the Horus, you swap out the Osiris, the same composition otherwise, probably would work a lot cleaner.
Let's go to the picks and bans then now for game number 2. I think worth noting that this team did struggle a little bit with kind of starting these fights, the Pandemonium squad as well. I think they were really reliant on a perfect stun from Predge into a priority target, or from a really good to the skies ultimate to get them into the backline too. They had a couple of them, but even when they did it, they kind of came out of those ultimates a little bit disjointed. And then accounting department, their big old AoE Kukulkan Khan was able to make pretty easy work of it anyway. A tough one for them. I wonder if that will be the idea for Pandemonium, like a little bit easier way to start these team fights off more consistently.
Well, the good news is that if you're Kana here, your entire god pool, well, not even entire god pool, but at least 2 of your favorite gods aren't getting stripped from you immediately. I mean, right? Like the first 2 bans last time were Achilles, Cucullin. You still lose the Achilles, the Wukong taken care of there to try and limit Deathwalker a little more cleanly. But you've got Cucullin available to you. There's also, I was going to say, the Apollos, the Chernobyls, your On-Hers, who we've seen up at the very high priority, at least in terms of hunters. But then you start to factor in, the Warriors that we've been seeing focused down, as well as some of the Guardians. I mean, Ymir has been going, at least in the Pro League, pretty much neck and neck with this Sobek in terms of pick rate. And so it wouldn't be surprising to maybe see him make an appearance, although I'm not sure either of these teams are looking to run it down quite as hard as Ymir does.
Maybe not here in this one, but accounting department snatching up that Osiris that went over to Sarpei back in game 1 and taking the on her from Streak Up. Accounting department now just kind of biting the draft from Pandemonium back in game number 1. But this makes sense, right? I mean, obviously, Okeanos, can play this on her, but it's just Osiris that's likely going to be up in Deathwalker's hands that is scary. That's why they give Kana a strong tool. He's going to need the help to deal with this, because something Deathwalker really likes to play. If he does end up going with it, they don't flex it maybe over to the jungle.
The on her, though, I'm a little worried about it at this point. I mean, I just saw a 33% win rate on him. Like, he's doing pretty well in the Pro League. I'd have to go get the numbers exactly, but, like, it's maybe a little sad to see him locked in here for accounting department. I hope this is going to be one of those games that falls in that 33%, right? I like seeing a good on-her play, but Raijin, Kukulkan, Apollo, I think Apollo, at least early on, can go pretty much easy neck and neck with on her. On her probably has the advantage in lane, but Apollo has the advantage in rotations. Same thing, the Kukulkan versus the Osiris. I expect Kukulkan to have a little bit more of an edge in the rotations in the late game, but Osiris to do really well in lane. Raijin doesn't necessarily have an opposition just yet, but I do know this Loki's been performing pretty well so far from what we've seen, and can absolutely take the place of a hyper carry.
Right? I mean, recent SCC and current SPL man, Johnny, has made this Loki look pretty good up at the top level. Wonder if accounting department will be able to grab some of those same shades here, or they're going to be putting that into Ice's hands. He looked great on that Fenrir. I don't know if we talked enough about that when we were breaking down that game number 1, but he was a real thorn in the side of of Pandemonium. If they can do a similar thing on this Loki, keep pressure on this Raijin, his cooldowns, his beads, and really make it hard for him to comfortably play in those team fights, I think they could have a very similar sort of performance they had in game number 1, and they're bringing out the Bacchus here for Collis. Kind of looks like they might just be going mostly for comfort picks here. I don't know if I'd consider Loki that for Ice, but just about everything else feels like it.
I mean, it's good targeting Loki, especially against something like Raijin, honestly, even Apollo. Really good follow-up and chase potential. Same thing I would even argue into the Raven, where he's able to chase them down a little bit easier. You immune his damage or you dodge him some way or another, and he can just assassinate to close the gap to really get there. The Bacchus I love, and it's only because he's got good, like, first off, he's just really aggressive if you play him properly. Does a lot more damage than your standard Guardians, but it's at the suffer of the receiving end, right? You're going to be taking a little bit more than what you might get in some of the others. But I really love what he can do. Intoxicate in the middle of a team fight as well as around objectives is just really solid. His ability to stun as well as have some anti-heal in there is just really comfortable. But admittedly, there's a lot of other Guardians that would be on my list to lock in before I got to Bacchus. I mean, look, Ymir, Yamoja are both still available. Like, I'm really trepidatious about this Bacchus, especially going into a Hercules, because it's going to be pretty easy. Like, belly flop gets you out of one of those, but it's not going to save you every time.
I have to be careful for that aggression, but doesn't it still feel like a triple warrior type of comp? It's not with the Raven here instead an assassin, but feels like he fits that mold, doesn't he, with the Kukulkan, the Hercules, and now this Raven. They like this sort of triple aggressive frontline composition to set up for this backline. It did not quite work out for them in game 1. It was too much of the pace being set by Ice on that Fenrir. Maybe the hope is this time, Gore, that Ice keeps his head down and farms on Loki for a while, and maybe your Hercules, your Raven can kind of control this early game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little slower. I don't know. On her, Bacchus, like, is aggressive, but
still good,
Hercules, Apollo is aggressive, right? So, like, the duo lane, I think, is going to still find a lot of fights. The only downside I really have for Pandemonium is just magic damage. Like, Raijin does a lot of it, but is he enough on his own? Like, is he going to be able to find it? He doesn't have any big burst. When I look at Boulder, realistically, is the only one I can see on Pandemonium that can help rival the two well-secure objective ults that accounting department have. Like, I'm worried about the objective fights, and that's where Pandemonium suffered last time.
In controlling those objectives, controlling the late-game team fights, will they be better here in game number 2?
It's going to be important for Pandemonium. They got off to a great start in game number 1, but unable to convert, and accounting department had the counterpunch all game long, including Deathwalker with a quad, nearly a penta. Thanks, Wolfie, to really turn that game around, and that's really when the tide shifted, and that's when the Sun Wukong kind of took things over. Still Dolson, Myth, and Doug bringing you game number 2, and Myth, there are some pivots here, but really the big one in the mid lane still the same here, Wolfie on this Kukulkan, and there is some setup around it that can bring out the damage.
Dave, I promise you I will start analyzing this game, but I gotta address chat directly first. If you guys can go ahead and
Why would you ever
Twitter
do... Okay.
and make sure you find Wolfie and just tweet at him publicly, like at Wolfie selfish, all caps, space out all the letters so it's like really aesthetic. That would be perfect because he is selfish, stealing away his teammates' pentakill. I think he wanted me to talk about the game a little bit, so I will hear.
Yeah,
Dave.
probably. Right.
I think Preds is in a similar position as last game where he can at least try and find the pressure. I think we're going to see him do the exact same thing he did last game, which was back as soon as he can afford that Warriors tab eye, and then start to find pressure in mid. It feels to me like Pandamonium had a strategy that worked in the early last time, and they're trying to run it back this time, hopefully able to transition it better. And Preds already off to a very strong start, strips away Okeanos' beads.
That's right, looking for the knockback, but we'll get the beads, and that feels good. Support reaching level 2 tends to be a death, well, not a death sentence, but maybe a beads death sentence over in this lane. Could there be some early help here, though? Ice on the level 2 gank, up, down, onto Preds. No mana left on this Hercules, and the chip damage is just enough. That's the aggression you expect to see from this Bacchus early on. Minute and 20 seconds in, accounting department already on the board.
Well, Finch was saying that Pandemonium might just be hoping that Ice would keep his head down and farm for the first couple of levels. No, we're getting shades of Season 7. A little cringe gank over the duo lane while they're still level 1 and 2. Ice able to rotate in and set up for first blood. Well, because duo lane's a 2v2, you gotta respect that. It's kind of this age-old tradition of Hunter v Hunter, support v support. You don't really want people edging in there. Plus, Ice comes in with a distinct advantage. It's kind of cringy, bro. It's just a little bit.
So Ice should have said, "Well, I have the chance to give my team an advantage here, but like it's not by the honor code, so I shouldn't go do it." Is kind of the mindset there.
I think
like
so.
what he's doing here in mid, like that wasn't allowed.
No,
like he's not allowed to walk in the mid lane.
No, but like, you know, Joshy had all the advantage there, Dave. He had his own wave. He was a level up on Ice. He should be expecting a jungler in his lane, you know. That makes sense to me. But it's almost like bringing a gun to a sword fight, right? Like, a samurai is going to lose to a pirate because dude's got a gun, but, you know, he's not better.
Well, there's more cringe happening over here in duo, and it's Okeanos who is cringing the hardest. But Preds gets locked out once more. Ice now gets the kill. Sarpei was here, but kind of on the back foot. Maybe still a chance. Kalas is somewhat low, level 2, half HP, but Ice still here, but so is Wolfie. But look at the damage Sarpei is able to do. Stun, no good, as Sarpei will immune that one out. Streak Up survives, but the up-down now in, and Okeanos now on the board. What a disastrous start to game number 2, unless Joshy gets this kill for Pandemonium, but now it's the Raijin who's maybe looking worried.
Preds blinks forward, finds the double punch to make sure Raijin's able to work his way out of there. Speed of the 9 wins a little bit off the mark this time around. Wolfie couldn't quite confirm that one. The level 2 Hercules, Preds doing whatever he can on the map, and this is the result of a cringe gank, Dave. Both supports, 3.5 minutes in, are still just now ticking over to level 3.
I mean, all right, fair enough. But
hold on.
The chaos that's happening, look, can't you feel it, Myth? Like, just the body cringing, like Ice over here on this side of the map, like, you kind of just, like, curl up because it's just so cringy what Ice is doing there, putting pressure out on the duo lane. It's wild. It's like a spider sense, a spidey sense, but it's like a cringe sense where you can just, you feel when Ice is on this side of the map, I guess. Can't you tell I'm really leaning into this whole cringe thing? But Ice is too, and now he's 201. So that's why I don't get it. Why would you never not do that if it's open and clear and you're ready and you can get yourself a couple kills on the board?
Well, legitimately, it is a very risky play that Ice makes. Back in Season 7, if you dedicated the gank in the early, you do, you know, if you don't get the kill, you can at least back up in the jungle and farm up. But with no jungle buffs being open on that side, had Ice not gotten first blood, he would have lost a lot of time. So maybe it is, you know, a calculated play where you have some inherent risk to yourself in Season 8. So cringe gank, really not the right moniker this time around, just improperly named Ice to make a calculated decision in which he risks himself, and it succeeds for him. Now, Loki 2-0 at the 4-minute mark, coming back over here, seeing if maybe he can spot someone out. Ice really does have a vendetta up against Streak Up.
He does, and he's going to make it back this time. Now it's Joshy, maybe trying to help out on this duo side. But back to the mid lane goes the Raijin. Haven't really got to talk about the Raijin yet. Joshy now 1 kill here in this game. good confirmable damage with that ultimate. Good utility as well, whether you want to taunt, fear, or just do some extra damage on top of it. Starting to see a little bit more of this pick, Mifflin, for good reason.
Yeah, I like it a lot, but I need to see more from Sarpe in particular, Dave. This Robin is a pick that needs to be getting involved a lot earlier on, especially considering he's already got the Warriors tab available to him. He's probably one of the best gods on the map, excluding soul laners right now, at 1v1s or finding kills in lane. He's also been spending his time farming up a lot more effectively than Ice, who's been looking for these duo lane ganks, which means that he's got a slight lead for himself, despite being 0-1 up against Ice's 2-0. Sarpe needs to start leveraging that in the early, create a lead, create some advantage state for his team, so they can leverage this early game draft, this triple frontline draft, and turn it into something.
That's right, you need to see more pressure, just like what Kalas is putting on to Joshi here. Okeanos being dove here. Preds will help Pandamonium pick up another kill in this game. And Okeanos now feeling the pressure. Both Hunters have. Streakup hasn't died yet, but the duo lane has been chaotic to start off this game. Now some damage onto Kalas on the backside. The belly flop up and out, and Sarpe picks up another. Pandemonium starting to roar through this game. Wolfie with the Spirit of the Nine Winds adds one to the accounting department. Excavate soars on by Ice, but Wolfie will end up getting plucked back here. Joshi won't be able to confirm the kill or the damage. Ice survives, so does Joshi on the other side. 1-for-1 trade in the mid.
Yeah, Ice was just dancing around inside his tower, praying that not a single Taiko drum or Excavate would hit him. And he was right to do so. Not anything coming through from Pandemonium able to finish off that Loki as Wolfie stepping a little bit too far forward. Has to avoid the pool, can't quite do it. Should lose his life here.
Wow, Hercules just walked in the lane. Raiju is there. Wolfie survives. Looks like Joshi just needed a little more damage. One tick of damage on that Raiju would have spelled death for Wolfie, but Wolfie able to walk out with his life. It's only Joshi, though, that's able to stay and farm up this waves. That's maybe a big difference in how this game turns, but it's Joshi playing catch-up. Wolfie level 9, 101. Joshi level 8, 101. But Miff, we have seen aggression from both sides with no signs of slowing.
Yeah, Joshi kind of fumbled the bag back-to-back there. Sarpe gets instant slam, Sunder, impale to the wall, and Desert Fury puts him down. Sarpe tried to leverage that early game pick, doesn't quite realize how squishy he is. Man's like wet paper up against a blade. Pandemonium struggling to find their footing here.
I'm glad you saw that. He literally died so fast that my eyes missed the Sunder. Like, the Sunder animation finished, and he was already dead. That was nuts. And a tough roll there for Sarpe. Now 1-3 on this Robin. Ice at 202, continuing to pull just a bit further ahead. Streakup has beads here, so it'll be difficult to grab a kill onto this Apollo. Preds is going to lurk over here on the left side as well. So back to the good old 2v2, unless Sarpe chooses to cringe a bit on the left-hand side of the map.
Hold on.
But
we can't use it too much, Dave. If you keep calling them cringe ganks or pre-2-minute ganks inside the dual lane that are only possible.
That's my point.
There are no wards over there. No, you're almost saying that.
What do you mean there are no wards? You start the game with a
ward that lasts for like 40 seconds, bro. With its vision shard, it's not even a ward. Dave, you are embarrassing yourself right now.
Are you kidding me? No.
You got to back to buy wards. Wards cost gold, Dave. Come on. Let's think about it.
You can't just say there's no wards at the start of the game. That's just not. You literally spawn in with the. Oh my god. It's unbelievable. What time is it? 12:19. It feels like it's 8 a.m. If you're dragging me, just. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Doug. Thank you. You get one every minute and 20 seconds.
Oh, what does that say? Vision shard, not ward? Okay, sounds like I'm within the realm of truth here, Dave.
Yeah, but. Actually, I don't know this. Do you get, I was about to make a definitive statement that I'm actually not sure on. I'll back to that one once Preds finishes off this gank onto Okeanos. The leap away for the on-her will be enough for the time being. And Pandemonium won't get the kill unless Streakup wants to commit the ultimate. It looks like he does. Okeanos back into the Excavate. 2 ultimates used. And Okeanos will finally go down. Now action over on the right-hand side. Ice and Deathwalker both somewhat low here. You can feel the pressure of Sarpe, although he's 1-3-1, has maintained a level over here with Ice. And the Loki will end up going back.
Man, Preds just doesn't trust Streak Up, I guess. You know he's communicating. All right, it jumps down on her. I'm going up into the air into my chariot. Let me finish off this kill. Pred says, you know what? I don't trust you at all. Blinks forward to use the excavate. Does at least confirm his team the kill. Now Pandamonium trying to make something happen on the neutral objective. Pyromancer should go down for free here. Deathwalker cannot get there in time to defend it. Tough going for the Chaos team. Their entire lead slips away off of one 30-second sequence from the Order team.
That's right. Now Pandemonium ahead in the XP, just a bit behind in the gold. You don't often see that, but that is the case here. Ice continuing to farm up here in the mid lane. We've been able to take a deep breath now after all the action that we saw in the first 9 or so minutes of the game. This is a 2-level difference, but Okeanos is happy to take it because he's got the help of Kalas on the backside. There's the stun, there's the kill, and now Okeanos able to close up some of that XP gap. Streak Up was 2 levels ahead there. Bloodforged, first item, by the way, for Streak Up. Something maybe worth talking about in just a moment. And now Preds and Joshi getting clipped by a bit of damage.
Joshi trying to escape, can't get in the ultimate soon enough. Ice picks up that kill expeditiously, and now fades away like a bandit into the night. Accounting department turn what was a 1 for 0 into a 2 for 0 pretty easily. No counter rotation from Pandemonium, or counter rotation maybe a little bit too slow, as Sarpei just kind of eats Ice's dust as he's back farming in the jungle. And what was a early game 1-level lead for the Raven has slipped away. Now Ice 3-0 and also a level up.
Sarpei looking for the kill here on Okeanos, who dodges out the ultimate, but you can't dodge out that much damage. Sarpei will put down Okeanos for the 4th time this game, so allowing Okeanos to surpass himself in the death department there, Sarpei. So Pandemonium still clawing their way on in to this game. What? Dude, I can't... You got me in some type of way here, Myth.
In the death department.
Allows Okeanos to surpass himself, Myth. Sarpei made Okeanos Alright, you're right. You're right, the wording was...
Oh, I see what you're saying. They were both on 3 deaths.
They were both at 3 deaths.
Sarpei pushes Okeanos a little bit further on, kind of like
correct.
Pandemonium
There you go.
pushes the envelope and moves it towards the gold tree. Here, take it up, Dave.
Yeah, right. Well, look, here's to hoping this is a 2-game set so I can just be done with you for the afternoon, Mifflin. How about that? Accounting department won't get in range, and Pandemonium take the Gold Fury away. Just kidding. I love casting with you all the time. I think we got some casts this weekend on the SPL. So that's, if you want more of this action, ladies and gentlemen, tune into the SPL this weekend. Mifflin and I will be here all year long, as now the teams will go back to a state of calmness, just working down those buffs, trying to get themselves into a comfortable spot in this game. And as much as we've kind of talked and joked around about the left side of the map, Mifflin, we have literally seen nothing happen over here on the right. Both solo laners have just farmed up, hung out, and been okay with it.
They have, and you say calm down on the left-hand side, but I watched Okeanos panic ultimate his own uncontested purple buff there. Guess he's worried about a Blink Excavator, maybe an Apollo ultimate coming his way. Was able to secure the ultimate at the cost of his own, or the buff rather, at the cost of his own ultimate. But now, the game has started to slow down a little bit. Pyromancer dead, Gold Fury dead as well, not much left to fight over on the map, meaning that both squads can go back to a neutral state of farming. And so far, the game at 13 minutes has not separated at all. Despite a 2-kill lead for Accounting Department, it's only about 500 or so gold separating these two squads. It's generally going to be experience inside of the dual lane that is the difference maker so far. Streak Up 2 levels up, but XP across the board largely equalized. Thank you very much, Doug. So I think we could take a much more macro view at the game. How are these two squads deciding to operate once team fight phase starts up? And I think the actives of Accounting Department can tell you the entire story. Double Sunder means that they're looking to pick people pretty instantly, looking for those isolated 1v1s or maybe the 2v1s before they actually take a true 5v5.
That's right. I want to see this Apollo as well as this game continues on. I mean, all the fighting's been happening on his own side of the map, so we've only seen the Apollo ultimate used to find and execute once, but when the fighting starts to rotate, that's maybe when the map rotational difference for Streak Up is going to be very important. Okeanos is going to have to be in the fight as it's happening, and Streak Up will be able to find pressure throughout this lane before having to rotate on over into some of those fights. Bloodforged into Executioner, so oftentimes when we talk about Bloodforged versus Devours, and really, I think in a couple of the couple of instances where that's happened, we end up going to the pros post-game interview, we ask about it, and sometimes, Myth, it just It's what I had money for, right? It's what I could
Yep.
afford at the time, and then sometimes it's no more or less than that.
Yeah, if you got the gold, might as well go for the Blood Forge because it's a much faster item, 75 power as well as that passive, and lifesteal going to be pretty useful for you. But Streak Up has yet to be able to proc that passive. Doesn't have any kills in that column, so we don't get to talk about it just yet. But there is the potential for Streak Up using that ultimate to rotate out a lane, dunking down, and immediately finding a kill, and then having that shield to work through. And that's a pretty large threat on the side of the accounting department. They have to be concerned about it because he's so large already, and is likely going to be moving into crit Wind Demon in that next slot.
Preds now engaging onto Okeanos, who will leap away. Excavate does some damage, but not nearly enough. Spirit of the Nine wins, deletes Joshi, and now it's Streak Up on the rotation right on over. Ice gets knocked up here by Kana, so the solo laner's finally getting involved, and it's an ultimate away. Now for the Loki, Streak Up has been able to auto-attack down Okeanos here, and he'll get the Blood Forge nice and procced in order to eat up a little bit of that damage. But look at what Deathwalker's doing here. 2v1, feeling just fine on this Osiris. Arpey won't be able to mitigate out that damage, and Deathwalker's on an onslaught.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stop anytime soon either. Streak Up on the 1v3, trying to do his best Deathwalker impression. Not quite as easy if you're not tanky, and Deathwalker's still doing his own Deathwalker impression. See if maybe he can confirm a kill. 2 over the wall finds Preds, and that's a clean 3 for 1 in favor of the accounting department. Pyromancer respawns just in time for them to pick it up as well. 1,000 gold in the lead, soon going to balloon out once this Pyromancer falls.
That's right, accounting department, that's exactly what they did. In game number 1, it was kind of an even back and forth early to mid game, and then accounting department just found really one fight around that fire giant that finally gave them the advantage they needed to roll things out here in their favor. Osiris looking pretty good here for Deathwalker. Mifflin hasn't been one of the standard solo lane picks just yet here in Season 8, but the amount of damage and just wailing away that Deathwalker was able to do in that previous fight makes it hard to ignore.
It certainly does, and he's still a level down, by the way. I mean, Kana is ahead, but Deathwalker has undeniably made more impact inside of these team fights. And I think it's interesting that Deathwalker elects to go for the Sundering Axe and the Gladiator Shield instead of a more auto-attack-centric build. Normally, we see Osiris utilizing Death's Toll with those AoE cleave auto-attacks to really sustain up in lane, but instead, Deathwalker wants the capacity to finish off his kills, wants a little bit additional burst and cooldown, so I do like how he's decided to build this one out. And now upgrades the Sunder as well. You better believe this Osiris is going to be chunking, but Pandamonium, 5 stacked, already looking at the Gold Fury. Accounting department knows about it. They've got Oracle Vision.
That's right. And this time it's going to be Wolfie who has the real secure ultimate out of both mid laners. Joshi's going to be able to do some damage with it, but you want to save that likely for the team fights where Wolfie's one big old burst in the backline. Okeanos looked at first. What else is new here? But the Aegis keeps him in an excavate. Will roll on by, but now Streak Up has his ult, and he'll dunk down in the backline as Deathwalker does what Deathwalker wants. Continues to find damage, but it's a double kill from Streak Up. Is the Blood Forged enough to give the Apollo the edge? Not against 3. Not on the backline here. 2 for 2 trade.
If Deathwalker doesn't back up to help his team there, I'm pretty sure Streak Up does win that 2v1 after picking up that kill for himself, getting a lot of value from that Blood Forge passive, but unfortunately not quite enough to deal with the damage output of a level 19 Osiris. 3-0 is Deathwalker. Ice mirroring that, but with 6 assists in his column as well. 3-0 on the Loki, looking incredibly strong. And look at the itemization that Ice has elected to go for. It's not that standard bruiser Loki that we get to see, instead going for a much more one-shot centric build. Hydra's Lament and Crusher. He's looking to shut people down instantly.
Oh man, Joshi is going to fear away Deathwalker and couldn't come a moment too soon. 14 HP is what the Raijin will live with here. So the good old TKO for Deathwalker. This Osiris is an absolute menace here in this game, alongside Ice and Wolfie. I mean, the only reason the kills are at all close is because Okeanos has died 6 times because he just gets jumped on every single time. If Okeanos doesn't have 6 deaths here, this game is further out of control. Finally, the Fury will be looked at, and Spirit of the Nine Winds will lock it in for the accounting department, who continue to grow their gold lead.
Nice little attempt at a steal from Preds with the excavate. A little bit off the mark, but really never stood a chance against the Magic Dragon. And Preds still trying to make some things happen. Pulls Deathwalker forward. That is a tall task. Not going to ask me to do that one. I want Deathwalker as far away from me as possible, but we can see that he could bleed. Loses out on 20% of his HP bar instantly. Okeanos on the other side losing out on 50% of his.
Oh, Okeanos trying to avoid his 7th death of the game, and it looks like he'll be successful. Oh, no, he won't. That's my fault. Streak up. Oh, God. That's on me. That's so on me. Streak up with the big turnaround, the double kill. 3 and 7 for Okeanos. Streak up, my man. 5, 3 and 2. The Bloodforge paying off.
Man, Okeanos stay out there fumbling the bag, huh, man? Whiffs the impale, whiffs the jump, and loses his life. Now, Streak Up uncontested, could go for a tier 2 tower. Kana on the other side, not nearly as lucky. Uses the CC meter on the ultimate to keep himself moving out. Avoids both ultimates of Deathwalker and Ice Eyes, but maybe only prolonging the inevitable. Does fall down eventually to the Loki. But the Phoenix on the left-hand side, someone stop this guy! Nobody's there!
Nobody was. It was Wolfie in the mid lane dueling out with Sarpei. And it's a, I guess, 2v1ing tends to open that up for you, huh, Mifflin, where Streak Up can just waltz on in because nobody from the left side of the map is able to go back and defend. And then Ice Ice and Deathwalker, I mean, in that moment you're thinking maybe we can kill Kana fast enough and maybe go back and defend, or at that point, potentially your left side Phoenix is just a lost cause.
I think maybe had they killed him 4 or 5 entire seconds sooner, they may have been able to put up a defense, or maybe not even a defense. They might be able to get a return kill in exchange for their own Phoenix. Just a lost opportunity there. And good just goaltending from Pandamonium, making sure Wolfie couldn't rotate over and defend it themselves, does open up the map. Left side Phoenix now down means that Pandamonium has a huge advantage. Fireman waves leaking down the left side, the lane furthest away from Fire Giant, means that accounting department are going to have to spread themselves thin if they don't want their Titan taking too much damage. But with 3 towers still standing, it's got a decent amount of damage mitigation, defenses, and HP. Accounting department can afford, if they need to, having their Titan just tank up a little bit, deal with the Fireman waves itself if a Fire Giant fight does erupt.
Well, 2 fire waves making their way down the left-hand side of the map, so at some point the Titan's going to have to look at those if nobody from the accounting department wants to go back. Pyromancer secured for Pandamonium here, and the gold lead swings back for Pandamonium as well. What a difference just a few minutes make here. And that's why no matter what direction a game is going, you can never count either of the teams out. So the fire minions make their way into the base. Accounting department will see how they respond here in just a moment. This is where you wish you had the Apollo. Now you wish you probably had the Pyromancer. Okeanos has to go back. He'll deal with the minions, and Pandamonium respond by taking the tier 1 tower and right and walking on in towards the tier 2.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's get Okeanos some farm going. Maybe get that Deathbringer online before he gets into another team fight, but it does leave him open. 5 versus 4 on the right-hand side. Kana's in.
Oh no, but Kana, he's about to be out. Oh, Spear the 9 wins. Doesn't find a kill, but Ice Ice sure will. Preds goes down for the rampage now for Ice Ice. 506 on the Loki, the jungler for the accounting department, keeping their team in it.
Yeah, Okeanos from the opposite side of the map screaming out, "You got it, boys," and they certainly do. Nice defense in the 5 versus 4 on side of the tier 2, and now Okeanos allowed to farm up that left side, should get him a ton of farm. Fire Giant no longer under threat. I think we're going to see a return to neutral until these Phoenixes respawn.
Now you got to look at the faces behind whatever chaos has been happening here for the last 23 or so minutes. Look, this one, like, it felt like it was just kind of rolling towards being done, didn't it, for the accounting department? But Streak Up is dragging his team back into this game with that 2v1 over in duo. Right back into game we go. You don't have to look at Myth and I for all that long, don't you worry. Sarpei engaging onto Ice Ice here, but the ultimate away from Ice Ice will secure his escape. You like the attempt, you get a kill onto Ice Ice there, big advantage for the next minute or so.
So hard to kill a Loki that doesn't feel like fighting you. If he doesn't want to, you're not going to get the opportunity. The ultimate's so good for the escape stealth as well, but it does lose out on a fantastic tool. Now Joshi can feel a lot safer, meaning that Pandamonium can feel a lot more confident moving in towards his Fire Giant. Already down to 50%, but the reset is there. Accounting department shows face, and that's all it's going to take to scare Pandamonium away. They pick it up themselves, though, do the Chaos team, and don't allow it to heal. Streak Up in the air.
Streak Up, where he chooses to dunk down here, over by Deathwalker, but Deathwalker might be happy about that. Deathwalker has the Spectral Armor already, but you can't tank up this many players on Pandamonium. Excavate's going to tick down just a bit of damage. Okeanos, he's in the kill column this time as Kana eats the only death of the fight here so far. Only Joshy has his ultimate for Pandamonium. Only Ice on the other side for Accounting Department. And Myth, this is shades of Game 1, where neither team can cleanly win a fight, and the FG is going to stand here once again.
But they still have 30 seconds left, 35 seconds left on Kana's respawn. Accounting Department can push out that Fire Minion wave, regroup on Fire Giant, and still have some time to spare. They only have 2 waves still coming on that side. It's already been spotted out, as you can tell from the pings. They send Ice over to see if maybe he can defend on his own. Deathwalker essentially single-handedly wins his team that fight just by surviving. He zones off 3 members, nothing comes through for him, and it just creates the space for Okeanos to find the kill on Akana. Now, Ice cleared out both Fireman waves and start to regroup with his team, and Kana just now starting to get his respawn through. Accounting Department, as you said, not clean enough, not quite willing to move in towards the Fire Giant itself. Oni Fury, though, might as well.
That's right, and that's going to be Ice alone on the Oni Fury. Streak Up is on that side of the map, but I don't think any wiser to the fact that Ice is going to be getting this objective here for his team, which is nice. Look, left side Phoenix back and respawned now, but there's the threat that Streak Up can go in, get that Phoenix, rotate over to the fight with his ultimate. Still can, under an Oni wave. It's just one Oni wave, but it will buy Accounting Department just a little bit of time, you think, to react to some sort of call there from Pandamonium on the left side of the map.
Yeah, that is the Leviathan's special. They love clearing this Oni Fury and utilizing it to pressure onto the Fire Giant. So we'll see how Pandamonium elects to play around these enhanced minion waves that have just now started to spawn and work their way through the map. But Pandamonium have done a good job of making sure that the waves are at least towards the center of the map, so they shouldn't have to worry too much about their towers. Maybe potentially that left-hand side needs to be cleared out if they care too much about this tier 2, but this even only 2,000 gold difference. I think at this late phase of the game as well, Pandamonium could be willing to give up a tier 2 tower in exchange for not having to see positioning around the Fire Giant itself as Accounting Department surges forward.
Oh my, and Joshy did not get a chance to press any of his buttons here in this fight. Preds goes down as well. This is the big fight Accounting Department have been looking for. Deathwalker whittling away the health bars of Sarpei, but he's got to run away from this one. It's only Sarpei against the world, and Deathwalker will survive. Ice did fall in the meantime, but a 4-for-1 trade, big for Accounting Department.
It is, and Okeanos maintains his life, which means Fire Giant can certainly go down here. That crit going to be ringing true. No one on the side of Pandamonium able to put up a defense, and at the 27-minute mark, this game is starting to open up a little bit. Enhanced minion waves already working their way forward, meaning that Accounting Department has the pick of the litter. They can decide wherever they decide to push. They can go towards mid, left, right, doesn't really matter. They don't have to worry about these waves from Pandamonium. Might as well reset, allow Ice to respawn, and then start your push in earnest. And siege potential is certainly in favor of Accounting Department right now. Their engage is so strong. Deathwalker at this point so tanky, can split up the map nearly on his own. Kalas, if he ever finds the flop, immediately into an upgraded Sunder. Better believe the damage is going to be there in follow-up. Yep. Maybe a Zephyr from Wolfie, or even just a couple of auto attacks from Okeanos is all it's going to take to finish off just about anyone on the side of Pandamonium. But that's not to say that Pandamonium, in turn, doesn't have the capacity to defend. They have a more standard mage inside of Raijin who should be able to control the waves relatively well. Preds, if he's able to, should be able to displace someone on the side of Accounting Department and open them up for some chain CC. Punch and a knock-up from Kana, a stun from Joshy, and then maybe Sarpei has to use the ultimate to chase them out. They have ways to get through the initial siege. It's just whether or not they're able to execute on it.
It just feels like now the engage that we saw into Okeanos through the early part of this game got turned around on a Joshy there in that last fight. Of just get immediately dove upon and deleted Deathwalker in the base of Pandamonium alone. I have to use his ultimate to leap out and away from the nice doors there that Pandamonium would rather stay closed here at the moment. So that's a somewhat big ultimate to have down. Deathwalker has been, again, on an absolute onslaught here this game, so not having that ultimate to either engage or disengage in a big dive or in a big team fight around one of these Phoenixes could be important.
But he does have a fair bit of CDR in his build, so it shouldn't be too long until it's back up and available. And take a peek at the relic selection from Deathwalker. Already has that teleport upgraded, does not elect it back despite falling to about 30% HP. Instead, utilizes that Fire Giant belt to sustain back up. And you could pretty believe that Deathwalker is going to be the first one in, likely falls low, and then backs and TPs back in yet again. Already, he's already 3 slices of the pie back to his ultimate available. And Pandamonium has not been able to stop the siege as of yet. Accounting Department has 2 birds exposed to them. Should be able to split up the map slightly. Looks like it's going to be a 4-1. Ice up against Sarpei in mid, and Sarpei is bringing the fight to him.
Deathwalker eats just a bit of damage, but look at this. Sarpei looking for the 1v1. Sarpei has got the 1v1, and the immediate reply from Accounting Department is to back away. The immediate reply from Pandamonium is to engage. Deathwalker gets pulled back into the fight here. Look at Streak up into the sky. Downhill dunk, and Deathwalker likely shortly to fall here. Pandemonium put up a miraculous defense on the back of a solo kill.
Kalas goes back in to use the Intoxicate to slow down the chase from Pandemonium. Tornadoes separates the map, and Pandemonium are happy with how that defense goes. Both Deathwalker and Ice falling in turn. Still 3 members with Fire Giant on the side of the Accounting Department means that Pandemonium are going to slow play it. They don't want to overstate their hand, and instead reset back to neutral, start farming back up, and get their 6 items finished up. Joshi looks like he's moving in towards his last item as well. Should be able to find some leverage with it as they move in towards this next Fire Giant, or potentially the Primal Fury as it's spawning right now.
As much flack as we've given Okeanos, well, flack is probably not the right word. As much flack as Pandemonium has given Okeanos. There we go.
There it is.
Okeanos is now, at a point where he's feeling just fine with his level and gold state. He's level 20. He's got his upgraded starter item, full build. So 4 and 7 doesn't mean much at this point. If Okeanos is able to stay alive in the backline of these fights, upgraded Aegis will feel good once he's got the gold for that. But now Pandemonium continue to push forward. Probably have another minute or so, or just a few seconds on this FG buff, not much longer. This is going to be the regroup and refight around the Fire Giant, you have to imagine, as the buff does fall off. Now a minute on the respawn is the word I was looking for there of the FG. Waves in a state of equity. Phoenixes didn't get any damage put on to him here, Mifflin. This is about as dead even of a fight as you get.
It will be, but Accounting Department looking to find any advantage that they can. Move in towards the Primal Fury, seeing if maybe they can get easier eyes on the Fire Giant. Instead, though, hear some sound effects through the walls. Sarpei isolated, forced to use the immunity on the second ability, but not quite able to chase him out. Our Accounting Department, who, and just going to back up, go to the Primal Fury and do exactly what they came here for, making it that much easier to clear out Pyromancer and Fire Giant. Percentage damage going their way, and still about a 7,000, nearly 8,000 gold lead in favor of them as well. They should have all the advantage moving in towards this Fire Giant. Elixir of Power picked up as well by Okeanos means that Fire Giant Shred is going to be there.
That's right, sure will. Fire Giant Enhanced Variety respawning right now. Pyromancer on the other side is going to be right alongside it. Pandemonium, yeah, you better believe after what just happened there in the mid lane are going to be close by enough to contest onto this objective. If Ice doesn't lose that 1v1 to Sarpei, I think you're looking at a much different siege there, where Accounting Department were able to work in, get some damage at least onto the base of Pandemonium. Kana aggressively walking in. Preds is there as well. Silence on through from the Ankile. Up in the sky is Streak Up. Okeanos being dove on, and Streak Up picks up the kill. Ice though turns it around, and now all eyes on to Streak Up. The Apollo is in the back line, and the Apollo will go down. It's a double kill from Ice. A 2-for-1 trade where we stand.
And the fight continues. Sarpei able to find one in the back. Kalas falls, and Ice at 1 HP walks back in and gets punched out by Preds. Mans was invisible. Just unlucky timing there. Hercules able to secure that kill for his team, and now Pandemonium have all the advantage.
Wolfie gets stunned on through. Wolfie does not have his ultimate here. The Tornado just trying to do a little bit of damage. Let's see what Deathwalker can get done. Is it going to be the deicide for Pandemonium? It sure looks like it. Joshi still has his ult, or he used it and came back. I'm not sure. Deathwalker is confused, but it's a deicide for Pandemonium 34 minutes into the game, and maybe an FG.
Yeah, if I'm Deathwalker and I'm getting pulled in by the ultimate there, I'm looking at my team like, how did we lose this? Joshi just doesn't have to use his own ultimate. Maybe Sphere of Desolation takes through and gets it back available to him. Already halfway back up are the Tycho drums. Could be what it is. Enhanced Fire Giant gonna go the way of Pandamonium, and you better believe they're gonna start pushing down that left-hand side. 2 seconds left on Apollo. Might as well wait that one out. 5 members with Enhanced Fire Giant. And the left-hand Phoenix already weakened from earlier. That's gonna be a clear target for him to go for.
What a turnaround this game has had. Accounting department looked like they were running away with it early on into this game, and the gold at this point I don't think tells the story. XP doesn't matter. You can kind of ignore the left-hand side of the map there. Gold, important for power pots, things like that. But Pandemonium have surged back in this game, and Myth, I mean, now you really look at the turning point in this game. Do you feel like it's that 1v1 there in mid where Ice Ice goes down to Sarpé and then Pandemonium are able to surge out, find another kill or two on the left side of the map? Is that where this game kind of shifts?
It really is, and it looked to me like Ice Ice may have misclicked his ultimate in that 1v1, uses it in place, essentially, and Sarpé doesn't even really have to look for the chase. It's a 5v5! Joshi, where'd you go, bud?
Yeah, talk about individual picks. Now it's Joshi who falls. Streak Up will use his ultimate to escape, but unfortunately, Kana does not have that option. Wolfie gets another. This is big, Mifflin. 1 minute on Kana, 1 minute on Joshi, and the accounting department suddenly feel confident.
Yeah, enhanced what? Fire Giant who? We don't care. Accounting department get 2 clean ones, and now all of a sudden it's a switch up on who's going for the push. Streak Up trying to go for the split himself. Can't really take the 1v1 up against Deathwalker here. All Deathwalker has to do is kind of idle around and make sure his base stays afloat. If he's able to stop some backs here as well, could make it that much easier for the rest of accounting department to go for the siege. Instead, though, Sarpé does make his way back, as does Streak Up, so the push is going to end there. Accounting department can no longer keep moving forward. Maybe wait for this Oni Fury to spot up and go for that, or wait for their boys in mid to get this split push rolling.
That's right. I mean, there's still 3, and we'll 3 Fire Giants to defend against, or attack against, I guess. Pandemonium are going to be fully reinforced here with Joshi and Kana in the next 10 or so seconds. And I think that's why you see accounting departments suddenly start to back away. They realize, all right, we took our advantages, we got this map nice and pushed out, but there are still 3 enhanced Fire Giants for Sarpé, Preds, and Streak Up, 3 fantastic gods to have that enhanced buff on. And really interesting call here for accounting department to lurk around to the left-hand side. Pandemonium is going to go right up the middle. Kana just eats so much damage. Apparently it is, Myth. Apparently it is. And Ice Ice will pick up another. Kana back to the gray screen for another minute after being alive for a few seconds.
Pandemonium caught with their pants down, trying to get there in time to defend this Phoenix, and no, boys, it's already gone. Accounting department. That's so toxic. That's twice now that Kana just gets caught out trying to walk into his own jungle. That's a tough situation.
It's so cringy. It happened on the left side of the map, dude.
Incredibly well. Dave, look, if this goes to a game 3, we'll rehash it in the first 3 or so minutes, and I'll explain to you what a cringe gank is then. But for now, let's focus in, bud. Accounting department, again, 5 stacked moving forward.
That's right. And they still got a couple Sunders to delete those targets if need be. Fire Giant, probably 30 or so seconds left on the buff itself, and then a minute back on that respawn. This is patient, though, Mifflin. I mean, look, Kana's still away for 15 seconds and some change. Accounting department want to slow play this one. They don't want to take the 4v5 underneath one of the Phoenixes. They want to go back. They want to get the Oni Fury. Oni Fire on the left-hand side, and it's going to be well-timed around the respawning of this FG. Probably just a little shy on the Oni waves, but the Fire waves are still going to be able to push in there on the left hand.
Should be able to. Accounting department in the best positioning macro-wise that they have been all game, with the left side Phoenix going down, Oni minion waves leeching their way through the lanes as you already highlighted. But now, Fire Giant spawning in exactly 1 minute. We'll have Pandemonium there in numbers and in strength. All relics should be available in the game. You gotta think that accounting department probably gonna try and reuse that same strategy, seeing if they can maybe isolate one and utilize these Sunders to find their picks. We said it earlier that they're gonna be looking for these ambush style picks, but I didn't think it was gonna be as definitive and clear as it has been in the last couple of minutes. Kana, you gotta give some props to him. The fact that he has the confidence to step this far forward is blowing my mind.
See if accounting department can isolate someone. That was pretty good. Thank you, Miff, for the laughter.
I had to register.
Shake off the wrist over there, my man. That one was a serious fire coming out of Dave to start off this fine Thursday of competitive Smite. We got a long day ahead. Miff and I are bringing this energy to you all day long. Actually, no, this game and maybe one more if Pandamonium are able to win it, and then they're going to separate us for, I think smarter decisions are going to prevail there to separate us like children. Pyromancer looked at by accounting department here. Fire Giant's going to spawn in just a moment. Got to look at the actives going into this fight as well. Every active in the game is going to be ready to go. Every ultimate outside of Streak Ups is going to be ready to go. Pandamonium thought maybe they could find a kill in the backline there. Streak Up.
Oh my god.
Still searching for a landing spot, but he's in the backline. He's already used his ultimate. Serpay evaporates under the damage of Pandamonium. And now Ice, he's found Streak Up as well. Accounting department getting the kills. The double pushback from Preds, but it likely will not be enough. Big time fight for accounting department, and that might be the one that ends the game.
Yeah, Wolfie's ultimate absolutely splits up the fight. Kana, the last one standing,
wow.
And not for long. Okeanos picks up a double in the last fight, nearly able to even out that slash line. But Dave, I got unfortunate news, man. Looks like we're not going to get a game 3 accounting department with 5 dead on the opposite side. Okeanos seems to know it too, just dropping everything that he can, padding out those stats. There's not much standing between these boys and the Titan.
Nah, it's going to be the mid lane, walked right on through here for the accounting department. Tanky enough is Deathwalker, not tanky enough is the Titan. 20 seconds out from the closest respawn, and about 5 seconds out is this Titan from Death. Accounting department are able to find a way to make this game work, despite what looked like a bit of a fumble there in the mid version of the late game. It was like, if you break the late game up into like 2 or 3 different chunks, like the mid, if you want to like then go further into that, it's like the early late game is really where Pandamonium looked like they had a chance, but the accounting department able to stand strong.
They really are, man, and it's all off the back of individual plays, it felt like. I mean, the desk really did nail it. They said that there's going to be a very pick-centric composition, and that's exactly what it gets it back in accounting department's favor. A pick on the left-hand side with a 5-man grouping with Enhanced Fire Giant to kill 2, and then another pick as Kana tries to walk out of base. Tough situation, man.
Yeah, tough there for the backliners in this game. That one just felt tough to exist on the map if you were a mage or a hunter. Accounting department, they get this one done into. We'll have the breakdown right after this. Stick around.
Welcome back to the SCC. That was a crazy set for multiple reasons there, Goran, and particularly a crazy game number 2. Really looked like the accounting department run away with it off the back of this low-key play out of Ice, but then Pandamonium pulled right back into it with great farming and some kills of their own. This one was back and forth, Gore, until, it ended 40 minutes until the 38-minute mark. Talk to me a little bit about how this one was so close and then eventually how accounting department got it done.
Man, you do a check-in at pretty much any point in that game, and you're guaranteed to see accounting department up in gold, up in experience, and admittedly probably controlling more of the map. It's just these little fights, these skirmishes that would end up falling apart a little bit, like just going back and forth. I mean, almost literally 1 for 1. We'd have one team fight go towards Pandamonium, one team fight go towards accounting department, and then wash, rinse, and repeat until, like you said at the very end, the death timers at that point were just so long that it did not matter. As long as you won decisively enough to keep 3 of you alive, you could get something done. And that was kind of the trade-off. I think at one point, accounting department even technically had lost their left side Phoenix. Like, it's so difficult to remember that part because it feels like it was so long ago because it was like 20
they
minutes
just split
in,
push
maybe
it,
a little bit afterward. And then they were able to retaliate with a good Fire Giant push. But, I mean, like you said, 12 and 3, Ice definitely was the one that was a real driving factor for them. Deathwalker, during those later team fights, was really, really helping pull things together. And it did come down to Pandamonium, just the last couple of, I would argue, the most important fights, right, where your death timers, your respawn timers are so large. They just didn't quite get what they wanted done, and I think, we didn't get to see as much out of Preds towards those late game areas, maybe a lot of peel, but not as much setup anymore, and things just started to fall apart because the carries didn't have much to go off of.
Yeah, it was a tough one for Pred. I mean, I think Okeanos entered the game with less damage than his support, Collis, all the Bacchus, but I think we all know the reason for that. They were looking for Okeanos every chance they could get, it seemed, and he ended up having kind of a tough win there on that one. It ends up being congrats over to the accounting department, though, and we said going into this one, this was a big win for them. You know, their Just F6 bounce back one, you know, you could say what you will about that, but Justice 6 had been struggling at the start of this phase. Beating Pandamonium here, though, improving that 3-2 record, that's exactly what the accounting department needed, I think, here, Gormizer, to really start getting themselves back on track to being the team we knew they could, and maybe even start setting their sights on Elysium, who are up there at the very top at 3-1.
Now, it's not a sure thing, and I will say that, but I will say for Elysium, that's maybe the best thing that could happen. Right now, they have, in this matchup against Just S6, the chance to kind of solidify themselves, I think for the first time so far, as a single team at the top, right? Not tied with anybody, not looking towards trying to do a tiebreaker. It's just they could very feasibly, with a win here, end up just sitting up there comfortably. Of course, with a loss, they then have a three-way tie for first, and everything topsy-turvy. And that, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, given the way the last few weeks have gone. But it definitely feels really solid. I'm happy to see accounting department starting to do well, and I think Pandamonium, really, even though they lose that 2-0, haven't necessarily lost their grip either. I think this is going to be a really interesting top three for Europe.
It is, and you're right. We know Pandemonium is a team that can give us a little more than just a 2-0. I mean, you were even saying, I think rightfully so, that this was likely to go to 3 games. Didn't quite break that way this time, but that last game was super close. I think the late game could have easily gone either way. So in the EU SCC up at the top, it is very, very close. We're about to see one more of those top teams play right after this break.